All right, this is chapter 5, and this section is about male and female statues. Nothing new on cards vocabulary. All right. When I first reading about these things and studying these here, I just absolutely loved the brilliance of the white marble and just how beautiful and how subtle that was in terms of the way the light splashed across it. Well, I had this whole thing set up in my head, just how beautiful that was. This is how these looked. Brilliant, strong colors. And I'm sure depending what area you're from, what combination of colors might you use, but they weren't that perfect surface of unadorned marble. They were painted. And even the temples were painted. Getting attacked by a cat. All right. Couple of links. It's pretty cool to see the research into doing that. They've also done experiments like the Peplos core right here on the right. It doesn't look like there's pigmentation, but chemically speaking, or there is a residual of chemicals that indicate that these were painted as well. All right, so we saw this before. I definitely do want to hammer this whole idea about these periods. These you're going to need to know. Again, I'll emphasize that. Geometric is the most childlike. I don't think that that's the best geometric example, but here I'm showing statues, and this is about male female. That's one of the earliest ones that there is right there. That is a centaur, and I think it's supposed to be Hercules right there. And they're having an awakening and awareness of body anatomy. Anatomy. That's 900 for a couple hundred years, 900 geometric. It is an infancy for ancient Greece. Orientalizing, period. When we start trading or going to other places, we're going to see things that we're going to incorporate into our artwork. And before I mentioned things like snowbirds visiting Algodones and what do they take home with them, they have a whole new visual category of things that they've never seen or experienced before. And just let us hope that they're not buying sombreros down in ancient Greece. Archaic, the word to me just simply means old, 600 BCE, but here we do have more of a refinement on the body anatomy. And check it out, that archaic smile and the ancient Egyptian step forward, but the hips, nothing new with the hips. It's straight across, no shift. So if we had to do that for real, we'd have to break the leg and pull the leg out some more, make it just an inch or two longer. And then we move into the classical time period. 480, expulsion of the Persians. And now we're all happy, happy, joy, joy. We've got our land back, and let's be happy and make new artwork. So we can look at work like Critios Boy, which is very realistic. The way that he's standing, the shift of the hips, contrapposto, the tilt of the head just a little bit. And it's not exaggerated like we see in later pieces of classical work. 323 rolls around, and who dies? Alexander the Great dies. Now we're in a huge funk. Like everyone's just like, oh my God. I don't know. What are they going to say? Oh my gods. And so 323 marks a whole different time period that runs until they actually become a province of Rome, which really means that Rome has taken them over. And just without graphics, Kuros, this is a young man. Looking at the dates, I don't even know if I have that. This is archaic, the archaic smile. I think it got chipped up a little bit. Maybe he smiled too much and someone punched him. Geometric, an attempt at anatomy, and not so great, huh? Bronze. Orientalizing time period. Now we have more attention paid to the definition of the muscles, the center line, and the abdominals. Maybe not so great along our terms, but we can identify that as a male. And they got to start from somewhere. Here we go, archaic. Kuros is nude, liberated from the stone block, archaic smile. So it's easy to see that they're nude, easy to see the smile. Maybe you have to look at it a little bit to get this one. It means that there's no piece of stone that it's sticking to in the back. This is completely freestanding statue. Romans, as smart as they were, weren't very good at reproducing Greek statues. So we're comparing this archaic time period to ancient Egyptian, probably because of trade. And we had to have seen this with that step forward and taken an inspiration and meaning to that and incorporating it here. But the question that I'll ask in some form is, what's the difference between Egyptian freestanding statues, I'll probably say male, and classical and Hellenistic time periods? Well, classical, liberated completely from the stone, they're nude. And check it out. We have this stepping forward, a little bit of a detail. And here we have the calf bearer. This is nice. This is archaic. This is what, 560 BCE. But take a look at the details, take a look at the abs, and in the arms, the kind of the skin on him and the legs. This is getting pretty good. This isn't perfect yet, but they're attempting for that. And I think that the actual calf itself has more to it in terms of realism than this guy does. Check out his hair. It's very stylized. We saw a bit of that in the Aegean with like the bull leaping fresco. And this is not too far away from that. That was 1450, right? Or 1500s. So we have archaic and the archaic smile. Here we have more archaic, and is it safe to assume it's a little later? Yeah, it's another 100 years down the road. And now we're starting to get more definition in the chest and the abs and the arms and the step forward. We still don't have that wonderful shift in the hips that we're going to get in just a moment. The dying warriors on this building on one side is the east side, and I have to see which one is which, right? It's classical, and on the west side is archaic. So they started building this thing, and then they finished the archaic side. Sorry, they finished the west side, and someone saw, hey, come here, did you see this stuff? Here's a photo. It's a Polaroid. They had Polaroids back then. And they were just, I'm sure, astonished at what's going on with this new style. So on the same building they incorporated here, now we go from immediately within 10 years difference on the same building, we move into the classical time period with attention to detail and realism. We're not going to worry about these breakdown here. Just know that there's early classical, high classical, late classical. We're not going to worry about those different time periods. Really what it means is there's a little bit of differences like in the eyes or in the body or maybe smoothness. But we're just going to say classical. That's going to cover the whole category of that. So 480, the expulsion of the Persians, and 323, the death of Alexander the Great. Here we go, classical, a little tilt of the head. We see a shift of the hips. And to me, this is not a piece, a celebratory piece, But overall, this is celebratory nature of what's going on. And that little red line is drawing across the hip. So there's a tilt, contrapposto, in those hips. All right. 460 BCE. And that's the early start of classical. This is very realistic. I would be curious also to see his back, to see maybe there's a group of muscles that is tight there and tight on the front. So that's not actually realistic as much as it is idealistic. And those terms kind of shift depending on how you consider them. This is bronze. So a good question is, why aren't there as many bronze statues as there are of marble statues? Bronze gets stolen or taken, carted off, and melted down to make other statues or weapons. Can't do that with marble. So that's why there's more marble statues than bronze statues. Maybe Zeus, 460. This is pretty early along, not with capital E, but pretty early along things. Again, we have an absolute definition, that barrel chest happening, and the step forward, and is it the spear bearer or a thunderbolt that he's throwing? So this has, even though it's a statue, has some very kinetic motion feel to it as he's throwing his thunderbolt. This is Discobolus, the disc thrower. This is 450, so another classical. And again, this might be on one side looks normal, but if we look on the other side, is that all tensed up? You can't have groups like that, muscle groups look like that. And this is classical. This is the spear bearer. This is 450. And check it out. Do you see by his right leg, do you see that tree stump kind of thing? So this is something I like to do when I have an in-person class. I'll have my students find one statue, and I'll tell them, all right, I'm going to go through these and tell you which one of these are Greek and which ones are going to be copies of Greek statues. The Romans were good, but they couldn't do it freestanding. They had to have help, and that help was by having other things to hold up the sculpture so it didn't fall down and break all over the place. So I went through the book. It's a Greek, Greek, Roman, Greek, Greek, Greek. And it wasn't that I was trying to show off any knowledge, but just to show them how easy it is to identify that is the Romans needed to have something to hold that up. And the Greeks were really good about freestanding statues. All right. And here we go. We've got classical coming to an end with Alexander the Great dying, and the big drama, like really, things changed. Things really changed. Hellenistic time period became very overexpressive and over detailed. Here, which I think we saw in the earlier chapter about Greece, all this dramatic detail. I mean, killing your wife and killing yourself so you won't be taken hostage or as a slave. This is Hellenistic time period, and I think we went over the Barberini faun as well. He's got the little horns on his head, so he is a satyr. And this here is, this says it's about circa, CA means circa 220 BCE. The seated boxer, he's been defeated. And aren't you supposed to show like pictures or sculptures of people that are winners, people that have won the Olympics? You get to get your picture taken with, a famous person instead of with someone who was a failure. By failure, I mean that this person was defeated in boxing. He looks a little bit older. He looks dejected, and it seems like this is his last fight. There's not going to be much more going on here. This is around 100 BCE, and check out all that stylistic hair and the beard. And this one here is the Loakun group and his sons. Highly dramatic. The serpents are sent to kill him and his sons because he warned inside Troy, I think, that the Trojan horse was built by the Greeks. And women here are represented. Not very often will you find them nude. The only nude statues you're going to find are prostitutes, servants, and goddesses. And that it took them a while to even be able to represent a goddess in the nude. And that caused quite a stir. So archaic, classical, and this is a Roman copy, right? You see the lines of the whatever that's holding her up. So that's classical. And then the Hellenistic, we move into, no, sorry, I'll hold off on that. So the Kore, which is really just a young woman's statue. And the role of woman, I think this is significant here with women in Sparta, women in Greece. Women didn't have very much rights. A lot of movies I see that women at least were taking care of the house and nice and clean and ready when the husband comes back from war or whatever. I don't think it was probably a very happy situation for anybody. They couldn't own property. They were property themselves. Childbearing was significant, and the weaving of fabric and managing the household. If he brought anyone over for dinner, well, that person has to take care of that and be ready for that kind of thing. All right, Orientalizing period, archaic, peplous core. And here we go. This is no longer in the textbook, but I like this one because it's not like the other things are not innocent, but it's very innocent. The servant girl is going ahead and preparing the bath probably for her master, not for herself. And here the Erechtheion and Aphrodite of Knidos. And this is the one that probably caused quite a sensation, having a goddess be nude. Right? And this one is Hellenistic. This is the Nike of Samothrace. This was as if it was perched on the bow of a ship and it was a fountain and water would be splashing off. The cloth that's around her whole body, this is like the world's first wet t-shirt contest, except it's not that crude. It is marble. That is carved marble, beautiful and flowing. Also, Nike, the shoe brand, took their inspiration from the winged victory probably from this statue. And there's the fountain, another view. All right, Aphrodite from Melos, Hellenistic time period, around 150. We're getting down to where Greek falls to Rome. All right, everyday people started to be represented. This old market woman, why would you do that? It's the same thing as like, why would you show, why would you create a statue of a boxer that lost the match? These are like everyday things, and this is part of the Hellenistic time period. And that's all I have, and I'll see you for the next chapter.